Hello, welcome back to another cast of game on the Age of Bison YouTube channel. Once again, I'm your host, SerSharkDad, back from a nice little vacation in Canada. Thank you, Canada, for hosting me. And I'm joined here with my co-host, Platypus Slayer. And here we have, I believe this is the finals of our 1v1 tournament. If you've seen it already casted on the General Spades Twitch channel, lucky you. But this is for the Age of Bison channel. So to cover all of our bases, we have Roblern, I hope I'm saying that right, or Roblern, playing Sweden here in the north. And then Gideon, who we've seen heavily featured already, playing Ethiopia. So we have a very interesting matchup coming up for all of you on the map Pyrenees. All right, go ahead and give me your analysis and let me know what your thoughts are.
Well, this should be pretty interesting. The first off, Gideon is an absolute mad scientist. Rob's kind of, he's woken up and kind of going beast mode right now. I mean, for those who don't know, this was an under 1500 ELO tournament. Since the tournaments began, Rob's been practicing. He went from like high 1300s all the way up to currently the 1600s. So, he's absolutely shot past most of us, and that's why he's here in the finals, right? But then you have Gideon, who's also reached even higher elos than that in the past, primarily known for his off-meta, off-the-wall strategies that, seeks to maximize certain aspects of the game. So truly, like we've had in the past, sometimes different philosophies at play here. For this one, we have kind of like the, standard player, very good fundamentals in Rob versus Gideon and his, mad scientist builds. And we'll see, what happens when an irresistible force meets an unmovable object.
Exciting. And we're on the map Pyrenees here. Very beautiful map, featuring just that center trade post line and quite a few natives in the corner, or I should say royal houses in the corner. Habsburg, Bourbon, and that would probably be another Bourbon and another Habsburg right there. Okay, so Habsburg on one side, Bourbon on the other, and a pretty limited trade post here. But I don't think Ethiopia and Sweden are necessarily big trade post civs. Let's go ahead and take a look at the decks. We already saw 3 villagers coming on the side of Roblern. Nothing crazy. I think we should clarify as well that this is post-recent patch in March, right? Is what you said?
Correct.
So, yeah. Okay. Blackberries, 1,001. Nothing's really standing out to me here. I mean, maybe some extra Merc cards here with Royal Mint is maybe slightly different, but this is nothing really crazy.
No, I would say, judging by the mercenary shipments that he has, look, Sweden, while a very powerful civ, is weak to skirmishers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're unable to make their own skirmishers, which makes skirm goon compositions deadly against them, right? So it seems like his deck is specifically thought out against, his opponent, who, again, has one of the best skirmishers in the game, and the Jav Rider, though, even with its recent nerfs, still a very competent goon. So see what Gideon's got cooking.
And we have the Naturalist coming in for the age up. And so for Gideon, he had sent the 2 villages in an Abun, going with Sudanese. Let's take a look. Trinity, which he already sent. So it looks like an outlaw build again. Because he keeps going for the coin gathering here. Very spread out. And look, a lot of industrial, very interesting native treaties at age 4.
That's an African civ feature. Because remember, all their native shadow tech, and so all of their age ups also count as a native alliance.
Ah. Okay, so then it just stacks with that. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Raji. Okay. Lots and lots and lots of late game options. Lots of gathering cards here. So, yeah, and it's all screaming outlaws to me.
Yep.
So we're going to see what kind of outlaws he can produce or what the Sudanese give him. Once again, 15. So... That's freaking funny. Jeez. That's a lot on coin already. I think this is kind of going to be similar to that British build that we saw quite some time ago.
I agree. And the outlaws too, Africans always get the same outlaws, if I remember correctly. Desert archers, desert warriors, and the cavalry that does siege damage.
Right.
So, he doesn't necessarily have to worry about the map, which is both good and bad, right? You might have rolled a better outlaw, but honestly, there's very few better outlaws than desert archers and desert raiders. So, looks like a Hussar opening for Sweden.
SAR opening, and then kind of doubling down on the eco, plenty on wood, trying to get the torps going. This is just a very standard play. No fuss, no muss, kind of what you would hope to and expect from Sweden. I think kudos to him in terms of vision. From his explorations, able to really quickly go ahead and go out and claim these coin mines. Kind of a little bit of a greedier economic start, but I feel like Sweden doesn't really lose tempo by doing that, just because you just break down the torps and then you're still able to, gather your wood, get your barracks or stable out, and let those torps go to work for you, And now blueberries are already coming in. Interesting.
Yeah, he was only able to get 2 husks, though. That is the weakness of the stable start for Sweden. It's a little hard to balance everything, the macro for the torps plus have a full batch of husks out. So, but again, the Sudanese are out. The dervishes, they did just get changed in the patch. They do now do more damage to heavy infantry. So, but they are, I think, a bit weaker to hussar types.
Well, he's definitely now seeing this. He may go in for trying to get on top of these, and it looks like they're gonna go ahead and fall back. I wonder what their stats are here. They do have a range resistance.
Do you see that? When you get killed so much, look, he's floating above the map.
He disappeared there a little bit, yeah, but I see it.
Killed his soul, my heart, my soul, defeated.
So these guys are technically kind of like a anti-skirm, right? This is kind of how we would understand dervishes, considering that they do melee damage, but they have the range resist of a skirm.
Yeah, they're kind of awkward. They're a fast skirm with less range. They do the melee damage. With good micro, they absolutely will punch above their weight. Again, they do melee. They'll actually they'll snipe cannons and stuff sometimes in a big enough mass. But that range is a problem. Look at that. The conquistadors are out.
Good timing.
Got Skirm Goom.
Yep, instantly in H2. And these guys are going to be pretty decent because he has the upgrade cards for them. And then in addition, plenty of influence to send them in, which we just saw him send. And then once again, he's going to go ahead and double down. And all he has to do is just kind of wait it out, just because he's going to get those economic shipments in. I feel like Sweden is just going to hard boom into this and just be able to absolutely outmass whatever Gideon is going to be producing, unless the units are of such quality against the composition.
Well, Skirmgoon is, like I said, the classical weakness of Sweden, right? So it's going to depend if Gideon can really leverage that. The economy of Sweden is going to mean less if its units are basically vulnerable.
But shouldn't sorry to cut you off, but shouldn't the Corollians have more resistance against the Dervish just because of the fact that they do have the melee resist?
They do, but the way that the range damage works, they will be kited, and they will a little bit will be protected, but most importantly, they're going to get outranged and outmaneuvered, right? So with good micro, there's really little the Corollians can do. And again, the knives were changed to be a little bit more consistent damage for heavy infantry and goons, I believe. Because they do what? They do a 3-0, and then they do a 0.5 to cav, right? Or something.
Yeah, 3 times on heavy infantry, actually. So yeah, you're right. So they're going to be hard counter there, despite the fact that it's going to be calculated by melee damage. So it's just kind of weird. Mm. Interesting.
It's basically like a little bit more powerful than a crossbowman, but it does the melee thing, right? So, it totally depends on what you're up against, right? You're right. The Corollians won't do maybe as good, but then they murder other skirms to even do better against cavalry, right? Because they do melee, so.
A little bit of a skirmish war here. Leather cannons are not going to be ending up doing much, but it's always nice to have them. He did cancel to send into 2, and then he's going to have the ironworks now following up, and then he's just going to go ahead and double down. Now, this is what Sweden's really good at, right? Like, once you get the torps, you have that extra gathering ability there in the early to mid game. And so Sweden has this massive power spike that you either have to crush early or survive it until they can slow down. And so now we're going to be starting to see a lot of that power being put on display here. He does have quite a few torps out, so he's just going to be able to definitely produce a lot of units. And despite the counter, I don't know if Gideon is going to be able to produce as much. Good use of the healing here, and now H3 coming in, so with Somalis. So
okay,
interesting.
Well, and something to think about too. Those natives are, probably more cost effective, right, for those other units, but they have a build limit, right? So after a certain point, you can build Corollians and Hussar up until your pop limit, where I think Sudanese are 15. The that's just a shipment for the conquistadors. So yeah,
21 Vils to 29.
But of course, there's Avens mixed in for Sweden, or not Sweden, but for Ethiopia. So that can make it complicated because it doesn't count the Avens in any economic graph. So it can be a little bit misleading.
It's just interesting. This is a lot of, usually Gideon is going to be more, I feel like, a more aggressive kind of player. I haven't seen Roblern play at all. And so it seems a lot of kind of like posturing here. Now going for mounted infantry here on the Habsburg side. A little bit of a push here on the part of Roblern. I guess trying to see what he can see. Maybe he can siege something down. These guys don't have the best siege. But just kind of casually pushing here. Kind of putting some pressure on. Looks like he has more troops on the way now. Even more Hussar, even more Karolian, and now the Vasa allies, which I guess will help into this composition quite a bit.
They will, right? Because again, they're very tanky skirms, so they can survive some of the bomb. You know, the dervishes, they can survive the conquistadors pretty fine, and now the mounted infantry, which again, they're like mounted shooting lancers. They're kind of a weird hybrid unit, but very powerful.
But plenty of a Dragoon unit. One of those leather cannons already going ahead and getting sniped. And he's just going to go ahead and kind of tank this. A lot of those Dragoon units are just going to go ahead.
Oh, but look, the Huss are now on the side.
They're now on the side, but he does have, I think, some Isa. And those Hussar are just going to get absolutely cleaned up, I think. That's a pretty...
Oh, man, look at those Isa warriors go, though, man. They are.
Oh, jeez.
Remember, the closer you are, the better they are. So, and look at that. He's almost macroed to age 4 behind this.
Oh, you're right.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's an impressive hold there by Gideon.
Yeah, I mean, he does maintain the Karolian mass. There wasn't much. It did look kind of tenuous there. It was like, ooh, it looks like a lot of those Dragoons were going to go ahead and go down just because we know that the Karolians are going to counter at range. But very smart use of the Asa Warriors, like you said, and a small little engagement that may end up having some pretty big consequences because now we see that score shift here in the top right. Very good. But also opting now to... It's so easy to just go ahead with any sort of your idle resources. Just go ahead and claim a trading post on a native site, and you're better off for doing so, spending that 100 food, 100 wood, and getting some of those benefits.
Exactly. One of the really welcome changes, I think, over the summer, it does, allow natives to be more integral to play. And yet at the same time, it takes a long time to build, so it will cost tempo, right? Pretty interesting mechanic that the devs added that I think has enriched the use of natives on all these maps. But oh yeah, there's the H4 with Jesuits.
Okay, so definitely wanting to. I mean, it's been so entertaining. I think it's so interesting to see like still able to mass and yet use a lot of the advantages of the Civ to be able to do these kind of crazy things of like, oh, I have an H4 coming in right behind this that it's like almost like a semi FI with a really healthy timing of 13 minutes with this age up coming in. And it just, oh man, it's so exciting because then he's going to get even more natives and probably he's going to go for an upgrade card or go ahead and send those native treaties for a really, really deadly push with those Shadow Tech native units. And so it looked like, though, he does have a significant mass, but these are all H2 units. So, oh my gosh, and that H4 coming in. But Sweden still has a very, very strong eco here, 36 to 23.
Full torps, it looks like, for Sweden. No, not full torp, but they've got about, what, 10 torps? So, significant, 10, 12 torps.
12, yeah.
Yep.
And a pretty
The thing
deadly
is, the
mass
African civs, when they go to H4, most of their stuff shadow techs, right?
Mm-hmm.
See, a lot of civs, when they go to H4, right, there's actually a moment of weakness, right, where you can say, okay, my opponent just spent, 2,000 or 3,200 resources, right?
Right.
You should be on the weaker side, like, let's go. If you're an African civ, though, boom, instantly all your stuff shadow techs, with, the downside being you don't have as much upgrades. So it's almost like the opposite, where I think Rob made the right choice here to back off, right? Because other civs, you can punish this FI, not an African civ. And look at all of those different units. I mean, it's like China right now is blush with envy with how many different units are in that comp.
And this is a significant mass now of H4 units. And you look at these stats, you're not really thinking like, oh, these are really like strong H4 units, but oh, yes.
Oh,
yeah. Where do they spawn at?
Wherever his point would be, probably his town center. So yeah, that's a 1 or 2 guard Magyar Hussar. Ooh.
Yeah, exciting. Those guys are huge. And then now even more Sebastopol mortars coming in, and behind the 1, he's going to be timing that. And then 400 influence per mountain monastery. This is a very, very, very fun kind of way of playing the Civ. Very different. It's exciting, I think. And now going ahead and going Exile Prince, trying to get that H3 in as quick as possible, see if he can get some of the upgrades in. And it looks like he will have maybe some of the resources there, or maybe even macroing for an H4. Not entirely certain, but we're about to see a clash here. And I don't know. I mean, even though being H2 units, it's a significant mass.
You know, it is. And if he's able to get all those vet techs in time, you know, Gideon's not going to be able to really stop him, because the thing is Gideon's economy's been all, you know, focused on this one spot, right? This is his entire army, all of his age-ups, all of his advantages. He's going to lose a lot of tempo.
You better be careful, though. 2 Falconets are going to pop here in a second. Colonial Militia going to be called on top of it. They're not going to take on the TC in time. Hussar going to go ahead and try to get on top of that Sebastopol mortar, and it's pretty slow. 2 Falconets are popping alongside the Minutemen. Oh, now we have a battle here. Hussar trying to get on top. It looks like they're not going to be able to.
Nope. They are not able to, but that's still a lot of artillery from Sweden. All those leather cannons doing quite a bit of work here.
Sebastopol countering some of them, though. A few of those going down now. Oh! Guard-mounted infantry now getting here on the side, getting into melee. Can they get on top of these other leathers? And they do not enough damage coming out. I guess he wasn't microing it, and it looks like those Falconets are going to absolutely go to work and clear the mass.
This is close. You're right. I think Ethiopia is now on the back foot. Look at that. Even pulling Bills. I mean, he basically gambled it all, but I mean, that was the fight. Ooh, takes a Falk, though.
Oh,
this is looking pretty commanding for Sweden. Wow, what a fight. I had no idea who was going to win that one, to be honest with you. There are so much different types of units.
That's so rough to see. He didn't have the Sebastopol. He pushed without the extra Sebastopol, you know. And he didn't have... I felt like the mounted infantry, the use of them maybe was delayed for whatever reason, and then using them in melee. You know, when he needed to get on top of those leather cannons for sure.
Well, just the timing of Rob. Like, he hit as soon as he got his vet tech in, he hit as soon as his Falcons came in, he popped Minutemen. Now he's going to age 4 himself, right? Like, he's still got plenty of torps. You know, his boom has not been messed with. So
not at all. Yeah.
I think that's just showing you why Rob's in this tournament. I mean, his fundamentals are just so clean, even when under tremendous pressure. Doesn't panic, stays calm, sticks to his Civ strengths, and now he's looking really commanding, I think, against Gideon, who, like you said, we just lost so much tempo and map to a Civ that you do not want to give up map control to.
No, not at all. And immediately playing those back, good idea, but losing control of that coin mine. And Sweden is so strong. It's so strong, and this is where the strength of it is being demonstrated. You know, an H2 artillery that, although, I mean, it's not the best artillery out there, it does its job. It packs a punch, makes you hesitate, and it can really turn a fight. You know, and then also on top of that, just like a pretty, you know, as long as you can get those torps going and you can exhibit, like in this case, in this map, where you have all of this coin, you know, on the other side of the map that you control, you know, it's so easy to kind of establish this idle economy that you always have in your back pocket, whereas other civs really have to kind of, I feel as if, do a lot more for it.
Well, and again, you know, despite Gideon's incredible rebound, he doesn't have a lot of coins, so he's definitely on a timer now. And, you know, he's building all these units. Looks like he's got those outlaws coming out, but it looks like Gatling Camels on the way. Okay.
9 of them. So this is difficult. It's a difficult position because even with a push, okay. So even with now many chopping wood here. I mean, even with the these mortars coming in and then with the Gatling Camels, I feel like still, I mean, this mass is massive. Like, it's a significant mass. He's got the artillery. On top of that, now he's H4, 2 heavy cannons. Yeah, exactly. Guard upgrades coming in. I mean, and like you said, a boom that hasn't been touched yet. Like, I mean, we're still like well within the Swedish boom time frame, which has gone on now for 10 minutes. But we'll see here now with the Gatling Camels now going to work here. Hussar getting absolutely torn apart. Can they clean this mass? He just needs to take out the Karolian mainly.
Yeah. You know what? These Hussar, they're doing their job. They're tanking. And, I mean, those Gatling Camels are good. And, oh, my God, they're making mincemeat. But those infantry guns are actually doing really impressive on top of the Falconets. And
Yeah,
Wow,
it's
a
not
second
enough.
cleanup.
It's not enough. And the Sebastopol mortars are not really culls, right? So, I mean, these falconets are still, they're low, you know, and he may have cleaned up maybe one falconet, a couple leather cannons there. But now with 2 heavy cannons on the way, I mean, that's pretty commanding. And there's not much that you're going to be able to do in that scenario. The Sebastopol mortar is just not going to do enough damage to the back line. And now he has way too much artillery.
Well, and this is the classic Swedish, you know, I mean, composition, right? Age 4 Caroleans and a buttload of artillery, and there's very few things that can, you know, handle that long term, except for perhaps a goon mass, which I just think at this point Gideon's eco is not really set up for. I mean, he's got plenty of coin. I just don't think he's able to utilize it really to get what he needs out in time.
Right. I think it was centered around a kind of a hard right hook that it just didn't land correctly, right? You know, either in a timing sense or in a micro sense, I'm not entirely sure. But it looks like now, with that being said, it's just insult to injury. We're still well within the midst of the Swedish boom. We have a forward base going on right here, right up against the base. An outpost here, which is a very smart move earlier on, which allowed him to ship those 2 heavy cannon earlier. And now Hessian Jaegers coming in with even more Crowley being trained. I mean, you're just a sitting duck at this point.
Yeah, you know, if you're Gideon, you're basically just praying for a throw or something, right? Or him to give you some time to boom back in. So he's going all in on the Desert Raiders, but you know those Caroleans now, they're going to kill so many of them before they get close.
I guess maybe the thinking is that if I can get a mass of Desert Raiders, then that would mean I can take out the artillery. That would maybe slow this down, but I mean, Hussar and Caroleans and Jaegers, they can siege too. They can throw torches all the same on top of your buildings.
Holy mackerel. That's panic built right there. That's, oh god. So he's probably waiting to do one last glorious charge here with all of these raiders. These houses.
Yeah, it's tough. 35 now to 47. I mean, Sweden has had a commanding economy this whole time. Now Desert Raiders looking to get on top of this, see what they can do. Hussar now getting in. One of them going down. Can he get another?
No, I don't think he's microed on him.
Oh, he did get it.
He did get a lot of Falcons though, but the heavy.
He got a Falc or 2 Falcs and a heavy cannon, but still one of the heavy cannons still full health, and that TC's going down. He does have enough to build another TC, but I mean, not enough units to really stop this push. And then for Roblern, I mean, he's not training any more units right now, but I don't really think he needs to.
Nope, I think he's basically he's just trying not to throw it. That's all you're trying to do at this point, is take your time, keep your mass alive, you know, keep focus on your mass really over micro, and make sure you're not getting raided to death, but you're in a good spot.
Little Hussar prodding right here, see if we can get out through the economy. I don't know if another TC has gone down. No, it has not. 60 out of 60. Whenever he's able to get that Magyar Hussar, he gets it. He doesn't hesitate to wait.
I mean, again, Gideon's a smart player. He's a good player. I mean, you're witnessing it. He's using all the tricks he can, but I think the strategy, like you said, it's a right hook that didn't land, and you know, Rob's done a perfect job to stay in the game, not throw, not get caught out of position too much, and I think this will be the final charge, right? Charge the light, Magyar.
Okay, so now one of those heavy cannons now going down, but the Hussar are like, okay, whatever. We're just gonna go ahead and charge. And these are, they're still Vet Tech Hussar. I believe it was just Guard Carolean. And that's a wipe once again. And a GG well played from Gideon. And there you go.
And there it is, game 1.
Oof. Okay. I mean, we've seen it quite a few times, right? Where like Gideon, like, I love it that he's just willing to kind of flip the coin, right? He says, you know, I'm going to do this thing. And if it works, then he looks like a genius, right? And we see something that's like really like interesting and map specific. And then other times, although interesting and definitely a fun kind of way to play, it just, you know, you're like, wow, it just completely lost to just standard. And, you know, it makes you wonder, you know, discussions about the strength of units, the strength of a civ versus the strength of other civs. And I wonder if like that right hook would have landed a lot better had it, considering that, you know, if Roblern had not picked Sweden, you know, as a civ.
I think part of, to Gideon's credit, he had a very smooth, basically an FI, right? He was able to get to age 4, but like any FI, except for some of the current civs like Italy, they tend to be very short lived, right? You don't really necessarily have the eco to sustain it forever. And so I think Gideon, he kind of took a bad fight, and I don't know if he could have scouted it out. I mean, that was just perfect timing from Roblern, right?
Right, right.
Um, but that being said, I mean, hindsight's 2020. If he would have just backed off, gotten the two Sebastiapols, and then pushed again, he probably would have won that fight. And then, again, Sweden might be more resistant to these type of pushes because their eco is all across the map. So, Rob did a great job to keep Gideon on his side of the map for most of the game and get his boom off unhindered. So, I think ultimately both of them showed a lot of skill in executing their strategy. It's just that Gideon's strategy just didn't land, like you said, and ultimately he was unable to recover from it because Roblern's, his boom and long age too paid off perfectly and was unpunished.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. If you go back and kind of look over that previous fight, I do think that maybe, I don't know, a few more units waiting for the Sebastopol mortars. Hard to say. I feel like they don't do a lot of counter artillery really well, and he did get the 2 Falk pop. So maybe giving it more time would have been harmful. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. And then you can't really anticipate what's going to come out from under anybody's TC. So you can't say, well, have some hand cab waiting for it, So, but it turns out that, the old indicators of how you win these kind of games is just continues to bear true. I mean, you see the huge resource difference between these guys and the more resources, the more units you're putting out on the field, and the more units you're putting out on the field, the greater the likelihood that you're going to win the game.
Yeah.
Take a look.
Again, good job from, like I said, both players, and the fights were relatively equal, up until the end there. I mean,
right.
I was actually kind of shocked that Gideon cleaned up that first fight, and I was kind of shocked that he lost that second fight. So, I mean, really, just like I said, a very interesting spin on a very underutilized civ. I think Ethiopia's getting a lot of attention this last patch, but Gideon's been working on this civ now for several months, and again, he showed a lot of comfort with it. So he showed why he's a finalist. And I think Rob showed exactly why he's a finalist. I mean, both of them have game skill and knowledge, and it just came down to, like you said, when you do an FI or kind of an all-in strategy, if you don't do damage with it, that's a lot of wasted res.
Absolutely. No, great showing on both players. I mean, I was, very impressed by the strategy, by the smoothness of this reaching through the ages for Gideon, and still, getting units on the field, showing a lot of strong macro understanding with the civ, and then Roblern obviously showing that he's got a really firm understanding of what it takes to play Sweden and that kind of standard build, and remaining calm and playing it out, and he did really, really well. So kudos to both these players. So that first game goes over to Rob, and yeah, so we'll be able to take a look at what the rest of this final series hold for our 1v1 tournament. Please stay tuned. If you like our content here on the Age of Bison YouTube channel, please be sure to leave a like on this video, comment what you think, and share it around. We really appreciate the support that we've been getting, guys. Just passing 500 subscribers, huge numbers for us. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you in the next one.